Welcome to The Explainer. USA Explainer ko subscribe kalo hamara video dekne ke liye thanks. All right, today we're diving into something totally wild about our ancestors. We are exploring the hidden genius of ancient human engineering. You know, we usually picture early humans surviving through just sheer brute force, right? But the reality, it was actually far more calculated. It required a really deep understanding of physics, animal psychology, and honestly, just incredible patience.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture a mammoth. We're talking roughly 9 tons of pure muscle and power. Now compare that to a single human, even a really strong one. We weigh practically nothing next to that. If you've ever stood next to an elephant, just multiply that sheer mass, and you instantly start to understand this seemingly impossible challenge our ancestors faced. I mean, how on earth did a vastly undersized, completely unarmed human even stand a chance against an animal that could literally trample them without even noticing?
Well, to figure that out, we kind of have to completely toss out that classic, brutish caveman myth. You know the image: ancient humans running across the plains, chucking spears, screaming, sweating, just hoping to get a lucky strike. And sure, active hunting definitely happened, but a massive portion of our history actually relied on passive trapping. Take Toltolbec, Mexico, about 15,000 years ago. Hunters there killed at least 14 mammoths, but they didn't do it in some heroic movie-style confrontation. Nope, they did it with perfectly positioned, engineered pits. The humans designed the trap, and the mammoths basically did all the hard work themselves. You see, you don't actually need to be stronger than your prey, you just need to be smarter about where you put the hole.
So here is our roadmap for the explainer today. First, we'll look at gravity and the deadfall. Second, elasticity in spring snares. Third, we'll scale up to landscape traps and desert kites. And finally, we'll wrap up with the ancient cognitive leap.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Gravity and the Deadfall, or basically harnessing the power of falling weight. Now, what's really interesting about this is the deceptively simple, incredibly delicate mechanics at play here. What we're looking at is the Figure 4 deadfall. It uses exactly 3 carved sticks that are loosely shaped like the number 4. Step 1 is this upright post, planted firmly with a really precise square edge. Step 2 is a horizontal trigger stick that hooks right onto that edge. And Step 3 is a diagonal bait stick that actually balances the heavy rock. The whole secret sauce here? It's tension. The heavy rock pushes down, which pulls the trigger stick backward, and it's all held in this super unstable balance by just a few millimeters of wood. This split second an animal bumps that bait, the entire structure instantly collapses, bringing the rock down, and the human doesn't even need to be there.
Think about how much this shifts the entire dynamic of survival. Active hunting takes all your time. You literally have to be in the exact right location, and it burns a crazy amount of energy. Passive trapping, on the other hand, does the hunting on its own schedule. A single hunter could carve some sticks, set a trap, and then just walk away to set a dozen more. Or, hey, they could just take a nap. This effectively multiplied a single hunter's presence across a huge territory. It was an absolute game changer for daily human survival, really a technological leap on par with discovering fire.
Moving right along to Section 2, Elasticity in Spring Snares, exploring the physics of the twitch-up. So now we're upgrading from the stored gravitational energy of a heavy falling rock to the stored elastic energy of bent wood. The classic version of this is the twitch-up snare. Just picture a young, flexible sapling. You bend it downward, lock it into place with a notch trigger, and attach a noose right over a well-worn animal trail. It's basically a bow and arrow, but it doesn't need an archer. It just waits there in silent ambush. When an animal trips it, all that stored-up elastic energy releases in a flash, snapping the sapling upward with tremendous force.
But here's the kicker. Hunters didn't just build these to catch prey. They engineered them to protect the prey once it was caught. Inuit hunters actually created this brilliant version that yanked a captured rabbit a full 10 feet into the air. I know it might sound kind of comical, but it's actually an incredible piece of secondary strategy. A rabbit dangling midair is immobilized and, more importantly, totally safe from any passing fox that might try to swipe a free meal before the hunter gets back.
And what should absolutely marvel you here is that completely isolated cultures, separated by massive oceans, independently solve the exact same physics problems. We see totally unrelated populations inventing bidirectional triggers, meaning the trap worked no matter which way the animal was running. They invented goalpost setups, incredibly precise tension notches, and they pulled all of this off using absolutely nothing but sticks and woven plant fiber. It's just mind-blowing.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 3, Landscape Traps and Desert Kites. This is engineering on a civilizational scale.
Okay, so we're scaling way up now. We are going from the micromechanics of sticks and string to macro-level traps built by entire communities. These structures are known as desert kites. Fun fact, they were actually first spotted by pilots flying over the Arabian deserts who noticed these massive geometric anomalies that kind of look like kites from the air. Down on the ground, they are literally kilometers of converging stone walls. Hunters would deliberately spook a herd of animals, and rather than trying to jump these weird, unfamiliar walls, the panicked animals would just instinctively follow the path of least resistance. So these walls gently funneled the whole stampeding herd directly toward a steep drop-off or an enclosed pit.
Now, for a long time, researchers thought this was just a localized Middle Eastern trick, but get a load of this list of locations: Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Armenia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Slovenia, North America, Africa, and Australia. Exploiting fear and herd behavior wasn't just one culture's neat little idea, it was a universal engineering solution developed by completely unrelated human populations separated by oceans and thousands of years. Turns out, the basic physics of panic simply doesn't change, no matter what continent you're on.
And the sheer scale of some of these structures, it is staggering. Down in Australia, archaeologists documented a massive pit trap array built 40,000 years ago, designed specifically to target giant megafauna. It stretches for 2 kilometers in total length. Just take a second to imagine the immense, multi-generational cooperation it took to build and maintain something of that size, especially when you remember they were doing it without metal tools, without wheels, and without some sort of centralized government handing out blueprints.
When you trace this deep timeline back, it becomes super clear just how integral passive hunting really was. We see circumstantial bone marks from snares in Sabutu Cave, South Africa, going back 60,000 years. There are the Australian megafauna traps from 40,000 years ago, elaborate pits in the Japanese archipelago 20,000 to 14,000 years ago, and of course those massive Mexican mammoth pits 15,000 years ago. Passive hunting has been this continuously evolving cornerstone of our survival for tens of thousands of years. We just don't always find the evidence because, well, wooden traps naturally decay over that much time. And this brilliantly illustrates how incredibly adaptable early humans were. Trap designs were basically a fingerprint of the landscape itself. In colder or super rocky regions where wood was scarce, hunters just used what they had. They incorporated existing cliffs and narrow ravines. In dense forests with plenty of timber and tight game trails, they favored intricate wooden snares. And out on the open plains, where there were no natural choke points, well, communities just put in the heavy labor to manufacture massive converging funnels out of stone. Every trap was perfectly custom-tailored to the local resources and the local animal habits.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, the Ancient Cognitive Leap. This is all about how traps fundamentally changed the human mind.
So, what does all this brilliant technology actually tell us about early human psychology? Well, when we compare active hunting to passive trapping, we see this monumental shift. Throwing a spear requires you to be physically engaged right then and there. It's an investment of seconds for an instant payoff. You either win or lose in that exact moment. Trapping totally inverts this. All the hard labor happens up front, and then the trap just waits. It requires a massive investment of foresight for a delayed and sometimes really uncertain payoff. But the beauty is, it works completely independently of whether you are awake, asleep, or 10 miles away.
So the crucial point is perfectly captured right here. Setting a trap is essentially a deliberate bet placed today against a payoff that might actually arrive until tomorrow or the day after. For early humans to build a successful trap, they had to mentally model and predict an animal's future behavior. They had to figure out where the animal would walk, when it would walk there, and what would make it lower its guard, all without the animal ever even realizing it was being hunted. That takes some serious brain power. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. A 9-ton mammoth never stood a chance against a simple hole in the ground. But did dirt and sticks kill that mammoth? Or was it actually the power of immense human patience, careful observation, and time? It was never really about overpowering nature through brute force. It was always about outsmarting it. Honestly, looking at these traps leaves us with a profound new respect for the calculating, absolutely brilliant engineers our ancestors truly were.